And welcome back to the show. The New York City Veterans Alliance is a member-driven grassroots policy advocacy and community building organization that's advancing veterans and families as civic leaders in New York City and beyond. As the leading advocacy voice for veterans and families in New York City, their mission is to empower veterans, families, and civilian allies to connect as a community, advocate for improved policies, and then also to advance as civic leaders. Here now to share with us a little bit more is the Deputy Director of the New York City Veterans Alliance, James Fitzgerald. And James, good to have you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, good to have you and Happy New Year to you. Listen, let's talk about veterans. I mean, as we talk about the year 2021 and service, you guys really do a great job of advocating for veterans and veteran services. But for somebody who may not be so familiar, give us a little bit of insight into some of the present needs that veterans have.
So, the present needs of our veteran community are not too dissimilar from the present needs of our society as a whole. Our veteran community are still struggling with mental health issues that need to be addressed. Luckily, we have a Veterans Administration that is there to take a hold of some of these issues. But when it comes to the impacts of the COVID pandemic, food insecurity is #1 on that list of things that the veteran community is looking for to improve and to have more resources that are sustained. We need a lot of these resources to stay around to ensure that not only is the present day going to be good, but like tomorrow can be even better for us. And these resources are vital to our veteran families in New York City. So #1 is going to be food insecurity. A very close second is going to be housing. Housing in New York City has always been rough. And for our veteran community, it's a little bit more complex because even though we have resources like a VA loan, with a lot of the co-ops being in New York City, I want to say there's more co-ops in New York City than in any other city in the country. The VA loan doesn't apply to that currently. So it makes our situation a little bit more complex, trying to apply the veteran benefits that we have to the city that we live in. So housing is continuously going to be evolving. But we have to look at affordable housing for our veteran community. A lot of us are in positions where, these affordable housing units are still outside of our reach. So making sure that New York City can provide affordable housing, not just for, our veteran community, but for all citizens of New York City.
Yeah. When we talk about New York City, one of the first things that comes to mind between the city and the state is the impending budget. We know the budget cuts have actually affected many service organizations, particularly we know veterans have also been impacted as well. Any concern, given the fact that COVID-19, we know there's a shortage of funds and also a shortage of services. What's your concern, given the fact of the impending budget and the potential for potential budget cuts?
Unfortunately, I sound like a broken record when I say this, but it still remains true. We still need more money. We still need more resources. We still need more attention placed on the issues that are affecting our veteran community now. Here in New York City, our Department of Veteran Services budget was not decreased, but rather saw an increase. But at the same time, the pandemic has caused a greater need and a need for a larger budget. So I'm still going to be on a position that I'm glad to see the increase. I'm glad that there wasn't cuts to our Department of Veteran Services. But what I will say also is we need more. There's so much more potential that needs to be put into our Department of Veteran Services in order to impact the close to 210,000 veterans that reside in this area. This is an area that encompasses at least 1/4 of our state's veterans. So to make sure that we're able to, accurately and properly provide services to this growing community is something that is a priority of not only NYC Veterans Alliance, but should be a priority of, the mayor and also every government agency out there that can provide services to New York City citizens.
Give me a little bit about government agencies and elected officials. What kind of response are you getting from them? What are you hearing from them, understanding the crisis that we're in?
I think 2020 provided us with a very unprecedented time, and everyone was trying to do their best given the obstacles that were placed in front of all of us. I'm going to, ring a little bit of praise for our elected officials here in New York City. They were doing what they could. But there's still so much more that was needed. What I would say on the ground, it was a slowed response that kind of put a lot of our veteran families in a position of not knowing where to turn. NYC Veterans Alliance, we stood up a veterans mutual aid program to ensure that not only those seams and gaps were filled in for our veteran families, but there was an on-the-ground grassroots response to everything that was happening during the pandemic. It's hard for these government agencies and some of the offices of these elected officials to, kind of turn on a dime and focus their efforts in the same way that we were able to, but that's what was necessary. It took a little bit longer for our government agencies, but at the same time, I'm excited to, look at the synergy that's come about from, the pandemic. And, not only are we reaching out to elected officials' offices in order to handle the situations that come up with our veteran community, they're doing that same thing vice versa. So the communication has increased between nonprofits and community leaders with our elected officials, but also our government agencies. So that has been an improvement. But at the same time, there's so much work left to be done. There's so much more coordination that needs to be solidified between our elected officials, our government agencies, and nonprofits like us that are on the ground providing these services.
Yeah. One of the big issues affecting New York City is that of homelessness. Can you give us a little bit of insight into veteran homelessness? Because we know that there are a lot of those people who've been impacted, and a lot of people sometimes who we actually see out there sometimes are veterans.
Absolutely. So when it comes to our homelessness problem, of course, like we have, quite the issue here in New York City, but like when it comes to our veteran community, veterans are disproportionately affected by homelessness. So we have homelessness rates that are slightly higher than the general population. And, here in New York, like we have situations. I'll say one of the clients that, we were able to help, one of our veterans, was an Air Force veteran that had, served his country for several years, continued to serve working at the VA when he got out. But when the pandemic hit, he was placed in a position in which he was failed by many of the government agencies that were tasked to assist with getting him connected to affordable housing. So it was just one of those examples of that veteran falling through the cracks and not knowing where to turn until he found us. And like we were able to get this veteran into a hotel until we got some things situated for him to get placed into affordable housing. But that situation is still ongoing, as with many veterans. And I think that should be the focus is, what can we do in the here and now to ensure that every single one of our veterans that reside in New York City has a place to lay their head down? I think at a bare minimum, that's the service, that's the thank you that we can provide for each one of these men and women providing a service to our country, is to say, we're going to make sure that you have a place to lay your head down at night. And like those are the situations that we truly have to get a grapple on. And for us, it's just being on the ground, making sure that they always have some place to turn, whether it be an organization or another veteran that's able to understand how the system works and how they can best be connected to the resources they need to make it through.
It's still hard and it's unfathomable for me to imagine that you serve your country, but yet and still can't find a place to live for the country that you went out to go and serve. I've always wrestled with that. And to hear the amount of people who are actually struggling, homeless, and, sometimes you even see them outside cardboard boxes with hats saying that they serve the country. I just feel like we got to do better.
Absolutely. And like that is like the continual like mantra that I, continue to sing is like, we have to do better and be better. Like, our debt to our nation's veterans is, wide ranging. Like we owe them so much. I'm a veteran myself. And it's a pleasure for me to, come back and serve, our community again. But it's also, very disheartening to see how many veterans have been impacted and how many have been pushed to the side and aren't that priority that they should be on the local, state, and federal government when it comes to providing resources to our community.
Well, we got to leave it there, but I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us. But before we go, if people want to find out more information, how do they go about finding out more information?
So if you'd like to find out how to get assistance through our Veteran Mutual Aid program, you can definitely go to ourveterans.nyc. There you can click to request help. If you'd like to keep up with what's going on in the veteran community and what resources are available to you, definitely go to nycveteransalliance.org. Or you can always follow us on social media. So get on that Twitter machine and find us at NY Vets Alliance. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you want to stay in the know, that's definitely how you connect with us.
Yeah. James Fitzgerald, thank you so much for being with us. We got to leave it there, but thank you for your service to this country, and thank you for the service that you're doing for veterans, even in a time like this. Thanks much.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, to reiterate, if you want to get more information about the New York City Veterans Alliance, once again, they've got a website, nycveteransalliance.org, and also follow them on Twitter at NYC Vets Alliance.